On August 7, 2015, Southern Paranormal investigated one of the most haunted places in the United States, Sloss Furnace. Sloss Furnace was opened on April 18, 1882 by Colonel James Withers Sloss. The organization became one of the largest, and the main function was producing pig ore. In 1886, Mr. Sloss retired and sold the company to John W. Johns. During John's operation of the company, it continued to thrive. There is reports that a normal workday consisted of 12 hours inside the 102-degree furnace. This was year-round. The name changed to Sloss Sheffield Steel and Iron, and the wages that were paid to the workers was in clackers, this being a form of money that could only be used in the company's stores. When the value of the clacker declined, this left workers owing the company more than they could pay back, and a direct result led to generations having to work at Sloss just to repay the debts. Mr. Johns also built what is known today as Sloss Quarters. These were a small grouping of dog trot homes, and they were built to house the workers with their families. Rent for these homes cost the workers $2 to $4 a month. It depended on how many bedrooms. The company offered the families a doctor, company store. There was a school across the street that was public. There were also churches located nearby. The women of Sloss Quarters made extra money cooking hot meals for the workers on payday. In 1960, segregation was enforced at the plant. There were time clocks for whites to punch in and time clocks for African Americans to punch. They bathed in separate bathhouses. The white men held manager status, while the African Americans held helper status. Sloss was known also as an inhumanely terrible place to work. During the summer months, temperatures inside the plant reached 102 degrees easily. The workers suffered from lack of work, long hours, many times working 24 hours. Inside the plant, visibility was very low. This made working the furnace a living hell. Night shift workers were poorest and desperate for work. Southern Paranormal put our new mobile command unit, effectively known as Shadow, to its first test. Loaded with the state-of-the-art electronics from 16 night vision HD camera system to its 4-channel remote audio system. Shadow is a full investigational powerhouse. We chose to deploy 5 night vision cameras in key locations at Sloss. The first camera was placed in the boiler room, along with 1 remote audio. In 1947, 3 supervisors were found unconscious in this room. All 3 claimed they were attacked by a man who was badly burned, who demanded they get back to work. Another death in the boiler room was John Staten and John Ritchie were killed while installing a new hot blast stove. The scaffold collapsed, dumping them and 8 other workers 58 feet below. John Staten and John Ritchie died on the spot, and the report stated that the 6 injured were critical and that death was likely. 2 workers were reported in the boiler room and the sub-basement under the turbo compressor. A series of poor decisions and poor repairs caused the live steam line to rupture and fatally scalding 2 workers who were checking a recent patch. The live steam coming from this machine was reaching 2,000 degrees. The second camera was placed by the flywheel, where SPI placed a night vision camera and remote audio. In 1890, a young worker taking his lunch break sat down next to one of the flywheels. It's not known whether he leaned back or was sucked into the flywheel, but what we do know is once his clothing was caught in the flywheel, he was slowly pulled in to his death. Co-workers watched and shuddered. They could do nothing to help. They could only watch. And it is stated each time the flywheel went around, there was less and less of this man to be seen. The third camera was on the car tracks, where SPI again placed a night vision camera and remote audio. In the early 1900s, a child visiting her father during his lunch break, Miss Ella Dennis, was killed on the tracks. Her family lived in Sloss Quarters. It stated that she was deaf and mute. This could have been a factor in her death. A night watchman was injured while he was making his rounds. He claimed he was pushed from behind by an unknown spirit that yelled to him to get back to work. SPI placed a camera at the number 1 furnace. Many reports of death are noted here. Early in 1900, young unwed pregnant girl came onto the property of Sloss trying to kill herself. She climbed up the furnace and jumped to her death inside the furnace. Many workers died after being sent into the furnace to remove debris from the walls, either being overcome by the gas fumes or causing an explosion or simply slipping and falling. In 1906, James Slag Woodward is reported to have died after losing his footing and falling to his fiery death in the furnace. In 1887, Richard Jowers is reported to have died after he slipped and fell again to his burning death. And finally, SPI placed a night vision camera and remote audio in the tunnel, where attacks on the living and the workers met their end by poisonous gases. Mr. Samuel Buthenall was attacked and beaten as he made his rounds. He was the night watchman. He claimed that a creature tried to push him up a stairway. When he refused, the creature began to beat him. Upon his admittance to the hospital, the doctor stated that Samuel had severe burns all over his body. Samuel did pass away. One last unusual experience. In 2003, an employee of Sloss, Josh Turner, was rushed to the local hospital after he suddenly burst into flames. He was severely burned. After the accident, he stated the fire happened after he spotted a strange shape in the shadows. There is not much reported on this incident. Although evidence is subject to each person's opinion, we have compiled some evidence we found. These were found in the boiler room, furnace, and the car track. All our video clips captured by our static camera from our command unit are shadow cam. Because of the location and the traffic, our audio pretty much was useless. First, you will see our camera we have facing the number 1 furnace. You will see a small flash of light on the first level catwalk. As soon as this happens, our camera messes up. This looks to be some sort of electrical interference of some sort. Was the interference caused by this flash of light? Was it a source of some sort of electrical energy? We'll let you decide. Next, we had cameras mounted in the boiler room. As you will see, a light came out from the left of the screen, pauses a second, then returns back to the right. We have ruled this out as dust or a bug because of the path it traveled. We were beside an interstate, but under a bridge on which the cars pass over our head. The road runs parallel to Sloss, so no lights reflected in the room. During the entire night, no cars' lights were seen in the room. The Southern Paranormal crew were in shadow at the time of this, so there is no contamination of our lights. We found this to be one of the most interesting finds SPI caught.